don't know how much, but something about the Hart Leadership Program and the SOUL program. And we're going to give you a quick overview today. Anna's going to be leading us, and we're going to be answering. We're going to leave plenty of time for questions. Did I jump? Was this
good? I would want to introduce everyone who helped me tonight. Awesome.
Absolutely. And if you want to admit, someone else just came in. So, yeah, so real quickly, the people who made today possible, we have lots of great people who are attending virtually as well as in person. I do want to thank Anna Ramirez, who is the Associate in Research for HLP. And she is an incredible human Duke student, former Duke student, and really has been a partner in figuring out how to reach and get the word out about SOUL, about PEP, and about the programs I'll mention briefly. And I would say, not to give you too much, I'm not worried about Anna's head getting too big, but really and truly exemplifies what I know leadership is, which is a kind of combination of listening, quiet, effective, getting it done, and creating a bigger we to really build a leadership project, which is what you're going to hear more about tonight in our brief hour. I also really want to thank Heather Griswold, who's in the back, and our new office manager, who's been really helping us with this exciting transition. And also, I really want to introduce one of the other, our newest SOUL teacher, and also a new Hart professor at the practice, Andrew Nurkin, who is teaching the Capstone this fall. You're going to hear about SOUL as well shortly. And Andrew is just brings a wealth of experiential wisdom and teaching acumen and inspiration. So we're going to hear from those good folks. Let me just say real quickly, a couple of words, give you the big picture of the Hart Leadership Program, why it has been one of the most exciting jobs I've ever had. I will say that. As an academic, I'm an historian, I teach in the history department and also the public policy school. But one of the things that I've long loved about teaching at Duke is the kind of initiative, and not by all students, but by a kind of more inner-directed group of students who have an ability to kind of ask a question that is courageous, sometimes fearless, and they can't let go of that question. Sometimes they're troubled students, and I don't take that lightly because they're really purpose-driven. That is exactly the kind of student that we want to help and to amplify the kind of intelligence, capacity to really make change in the world, which we desperately need. Our leadership program is the oldest undergraduate leadership program in the country, which is kind of cool. It has been a kind of incubator of innovation in teaching for quite some time. I'm not going to go too into it, but the SOUL program in particular has been a kind of key place for that innovation. And Anna's going to explain much of it, as will Andrew, but I'll do the quick checklist of things that have come out of SOUL. And I say when they come out of SOUL, they're actually coming from student leadership, from student passions, innovations that they have had, that they brought to SOUL and then made SOUL their own and created a bigger vision of what community-based engagement can be. So some of the things that SOUL incubated, Scholars with a Civic Mission is one. You may not have heard of it, but it was actually, at this moment, a really important innovation. Research service learning, something we take for granted today, started in SOUL. Duke Engage, an offshoot of SOUL. It's a version of SOUL without the community-based, without the Capstone Course. These are a few of the things that have come out of SOUL, and it continues to be a place where we learn by doing and by reflection. That's probably the key part of it as a program. So it isn't one thing, it's many, and it's being reinvented as we speak now in the pandemic. So that's also really exciting. We've never been bigger, and there's never been more enthusiasm. So we're trying to keep up with the demand, the interest, and mostly the inspiration that you all bring. So that is Soul. There's another program that we're also going to talk about if you stick around. And there is food, I can say that. Yeah, and there's food. Yeah. We used to get a lot of free food at Duke, and that's changed. That's the PEP program. And if you are a junior here, you might consider that especially. It's the political engagement project or political engagement pathway. It's for any junior at Duke, and it's also project-based, and we'll let you know more about that a little bit later. It also has a fall application. In addition to those 2 fellowships, there's a 3rd fellowship in the spring, Leadership and Arts Policy. It's called LAPI, and it's for policy majors who are interested in performing arts, but also in how arts are critical critical to policy formation and transformation. Most broadly. So that's another fellowship. And then there's the Hart Fellowship, which is for graduates. It's a 10-month postgraduate fellowship. And that really is, in some ways, the highest aspirations we have as a program to link up community-based work, listening, leadership as a kind of collective process and endeavor, and also living your values. It's old-fashioned to live your values. What does that mean? We don't prescribe that. We welcome, we challenge you to articulate what that is in your life, and then we follow you in a nutshell. And we give you the resources. There are also many classes in the Hart Leadership Program that we host every year, and I encourage you to look at them. Many of them have community-based engagement, other types of opportunities, plus events. We have a speaker, Jillian Johnson, coming to Andrew's class, and that's open to the public. She'll talk about participatory budgeting, which is kind of cool. Durham is a leader in that project already. So, in an ideal world, every single person who applied could get one of these fellowships. I wish we had enough resources to offer it to everybody. As someone who was rejected by the school he graduated from, which is to say Yale University, a long time ago in grad school, the first time I applied I was rejected, then I got in and won all their stupid prizes. The process is flawed. We do our best. We welcome your aspirations. We hope you get in. If you do not, we still want to see you. And it's no bad, it's no sense of shame. There shouldn't be nothing ventured, nothing gained. And you can also, if you're a freshman or a sophomore, you can apply again. So it's not a one-shot time. So I'm going to turn it back over to Anna, and thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Gunther. Great. So I have a couple of slides for y'all today that we're going to get through. Here, me. Should be working. All right, Yasmin, do you want to go ahead and click it for me? There you go. Thank you. So this is our agenda. So we're going to go ahead and go over what is the SOUL program. You're going to get a sense of the structure and the process and the application. And then we're going to go over how you apply, what does the application look like, what your summer project looks like. We're going to go over the 2 courses associated with SOUL, a gateway and a capstone. And then lastly, we're going to hear from Professor Nurkin and how the students did this past summer. And then we have one of our current students, Yasmia, here, who's going to share a little bit about her experience. And then we're going to open it up to Q&A. And whether you're joining us remotely or here in person, we'll be monitoring the chat. So let's save the questions till the very end. What does that mean? Cool. Okay. Like Professor Peck mentioned, SOUL is one of our longest programs that we've had around here at Hart. It's been around for almost 30 years at Duke, which is a long time. It's a nationally recognized 12-month program that has 2 courses and a summer project in between. And the process works, the way it works is that you come in for the gateway course, which would be spring 2022, and that sets you up for your summer project. And then the Capstone Course, which is fall 2022, that is set up to help you do some reflecting work on what you did over the summer, and then think about what that means for you going forward. So traditionally, the summer project is intended to be community engaged, and you do a combination of research and service in a typical year. But I know that these past 2 years haven't been a typical year, right? However, we still run our SOUL program. We have students doing a combination of both in-person work, sometimes remote work, whether they were working in the United States, worldwide. I think our statistic is we've had, I think it's 255 fellows in 48 countries and 6 continents. So if anybody's interested in Antarctica, that would be really cool, because we haven't been there yet. Great. So how to apply? The application is online, it's on our website, and the deadline is October 8th at midnight, which is Friday. I know that seems like a really quick turnaround. The reason for this timeline is because getting into the program is contingent upon registering for the spring class. And the way just the spring registration deadline works, I think it's the end of October. This is kind of how we have to do that timeline. And I hope that it works for most of you. The application isn't meant to be a stressor of any sorts. Really, it asks just to write an essay about what your vision is for your SOUL project and how you would be a good fit for the SOUL program, and a resume. And then once you're accepted into the program, you'll get a permission number to register. I think we are thinking about October 29th to send those out during that registration period for the spring. And then after you start the spring class, as part of the class, you'll be working on a range of things to help you prepare for your summer project experience. Okay, so you get into SOUL. The first thing you do is take the Gateway course, which is called PPS 263, Border Crossing Leadership, Value Conflicts, and Public Life. So the course's main goals are to build together a community that will engage and challenge one another thoughtfully, collaboratively, and respectfully. We want students to develop a very nuanced understanding of the complex challenges we face and to individually and collectively work to create positive social change. The course is really meant to give you the tools to be successful for your summer projects and to kind of redefine and reimagine what leadership is. This year, or in spring 2022, the course is going to be taught by Professor Alexandra Zekbayu. She's an incoming professor in the spring. We're super excited to have her here at Stanford and at the Hart Leadership Program. You may or may not know her. She is or has been the director for Student U in Durham, which is an organization that a lot of Duke students tend to kind of volunteer and work at. So we're so excited to have her come join us in the spring. So once you're part of the spring class and you've taken the class, you're part of the SOUL cohort, and that given year, actually, we highly encourage that you stay with the same cohort. Ideally, you complete the Gateway, the summer project, and the Capstone in that order within the same 12 months. So just keep in mind, it is a one-year commitment, barring some unforeseen circumstances. But the program is built and operated so that you kind of complete it sequentially. And then the SOUL Summer experience is characterized by a community-based research project. And the idea here is that you have a research project that you collaboratively designed between you and your community partner. It's supposed to be a mutual process, something that is useful to your community partner, as well as advances your learning and growth as a student. And then in addition to the community-based research project, we do reflective writing throughout the summer. We also do one-on-one mentoring that's part of the reflecting process, as well as applied academic study, which is what I mentioned earlier, the Gateway course. So something else that we have in SOUL is funding, which I know is super important. The grants for your summer project are awarded through a review process that usually includes you pitching your project, as well as preparing a project that you will receive training for during the spring. The idea is that you develop the discipline for articulating what your idea is and then creating a budget for the summer. And believe me, that is a skill that you will appreciate beyond your time at Duke. So important. I'm still learning about budgeting, so it's going to be great. And now I want to take this time to bring in Professor Nurkin, who's going to talk a little bit more about the Capstone course and then the past summer projects.
Thanks so much, Anna. So I'm Andrew Nurkin, Associate Professor of the Practice in the Hart Leadership Program, and I've got the real privilege of teaching the Capstone course this semester, and we'll teach it again next year. You might have noticed in the structure that Anna was talking about, the SOUL program functions with essentially the way I think about it is preparation, action, and community, and then the capstone functions as a reflection and then preparation for further action. So what we do in the Capstone course is we take a deep dive into the summer experiences, the summer projects. We think about what you have learned about leadership, about community engagement, about the particular civic issue or public topic that you were working on, and then how those lessons are translatable for your academic study and for your future career and plans after graduation. And I should say that that's very specific and time sensitive for those of for the seniors in the class, but it's applicable for at any point in your junior year, because we think about what are the steps that you need to take in order to accomplish the public purpose that you set out for yourself after graduation as a result of the capstone. The other important part about the capstone class is that all of the work in the capstone course leads up to a portfolio that should be useful to you as you think about your next steps in your academic career, in your personal life, and in your profession after. So it really is designed to be very useful to you and sort of I call it a time capsule that you can come back to over and over again and think about, these are the lessons I took away from my summer experience. And then the last thing that I want to emphasize about the SOUL program in general, but also about the Capstone course, is that it is a community, it's a cohort. We talk a lot in class this semester about a community of practice of folks that have shared interest, even if you're all not working on the same public topic or in the same kind of organization, but it's a group of peers whom you can turn to with challenges, thorny ethical issues you're thinking through, difficult questions that you're wrestling with, or just anxieties about the future. The cohort nature of this program and the community of practice is, I think, what sets it apart as one of the most powerful experiences you can have as a Duke undergraduate who's interested in civic work and public practice. This is just a bit about the Capstone course. Thanks. You want me to talk a little bit about some of the projects this year?
Yes.
So I could, because I've been spending a lot of time with all the students in this year's cohort, tell you a lot about each of these projects, but I won't go into each one of them. Just to say that this is a really impressive group of organizations and projects that were put together this summer. That's also representative of the kind of work that the SOUL project, the SOUL program elicits, and that we look for. So just to flag a couple to give you a sense of the breadth. So very locally here in Durham, we had Ruthie Gasari was working across the street at the Duke Law Center for Criminal Justice and Professional Responsibility, working to analyze incoming requests for legal aid from people who are currently incarcerated, who were requesting support for wrongful convictions. So making claims that they've been wrongfully convicted, and Duke Law professors and faculty and students were assisting in this. So pretty high impact work in terms of potentially overturning wrongful convictions. All the way to Hawaii. So from Durham to Hawaii. We had Josie Vonk was working in Honolulu as taking photographs of a restaurant, community-based restaurant there, the workers and staff and patrons of that restaurant, thinking about how that food place is a hub for community, but also is at the forefront of a number of social trends related to tourism, ecological destruction, locally sourced and sustainably sourced foodways, cultural food traditions in Hawaii, and specifically the impact of the pandemic on the restaurant industry. So put together a really impressive documentary project there. And I guess the last one I would just flag is, I mean, they're all pretty amazing. Elizabeth was working in the City of Los Angeles Mayor's office. So again, you can think about all different levels of public work, whether it's something in the private sector, like a restaurant, something in the academy, like a law clinic, or something in government, like the City of Los Angeles Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity, working on a collective impact project in LA. So range of work, range of roles, range of organizations. The most important thing to think about is what is a project or an issue you're personally passionate about. You don't have to know everything about it yet. That's part of what the SOUL program is for. But you have enough interest, engagement, and passion for that topic to devote the next year thinking about the systemic root causes, how solutions and policy questions are to be developed, and then to really give your summer to work in depth in partnership with people who share that passion.
Great, thank you, Professor American. So here are just a couple of student profiles. Professor American spoke about Josie, who's class of 2023 and did the Rainbow Drive-In project in Honolulu, Hawaii. Lizzie Kramer, she was part of the SOUL cohort, last year's cohort in 2020. So she was at it like the beginning of the pandemic. And class of 2022, cultural anthropology and public policy. She worked with Durham for All in Durham, North Carolina, very locally. During election year, doing Get Out the Vote, she did a Get Out the Vote project for Durham for All to engage young people to get involved with the election. So really great work. And something I do want to point out about Lizzie and a lot of the students that come into SOUL, come into one of our programs, is that they typically don't just participate in one, whether they take a class, whether they're in another program. A lot of students tend to stay within and engage with the Hart Leadership Program, and it's something we totally encourage. And now I do want to bring up our photographer back there, Yasmia Snipes. Yasmia is going to talk a little bit more about her own personal experience with SOUL, the class, the community, and anything else you think is important for people to hear. So Yasmia.
Hi y'all. Oh, hey. My name is Yasmia Snipes. I am a senior and a member of SOUL. If you look at the back of your handouts, and I hope we have enough for everyone to get one, you can actually see what everyone's projects were throughout the years. And it seems really like fancy, impressive, and complex, but it's actually really doable. I think that's one of my favorite parts about this project. When I applied to SOUL a year or so ago, they asked the question, why do you want to join this program? And for me, I always knew what I wanted to do. I always knew kind of who I wanted to work with, but I didn't know how. And one of the biggest things I was looking for in this program was the resources to do so. Help with things like planning, funding, and that kind of thing. I never could have imagined when I first applied for the program, when I first applied to Duke, that I would have the opportunity to do a fully funded service project with a community that I cared about, that I would be able to lead it myself, and that I would be able to be given the tools to do so confidently. I think a lot of us have a lot of dreams and hopes and that kind of thing, but we're not sure exactly how to do it. One of my favorite things about the program that I didn't initially expect is when I was looking in class in our Capstone course, everyone does discussions and such of like what their projects were, and we do presentations, and I was so inspired. Everyone approached this project completely differently for different reasons, and all reasons and all approaches are valid, and all of them were actually really incredible. That was one of the biggest things I learned. I never would have thought to go about the project in the way that Josie's project, hers is like absolutely incredible. And she creates somewhat of a photo library. But there's so many things. I had an approach that I learned about that I was really interested in, and everyone else had different approaches. So you'll learn a lot in general about how to carry out your own leadership work, but also about the leadership practices of others. Can't think of anything else I want to say at the moment. Oh, yes, I will say my favorite part about being a part of SOL and the Hart Leadership Program in general is the people. It's a really positive environment. I mean, I was in SOL and now I've come back to work for them. So it's a really positive environment of people being in a cohort. Over the last year, we haven't really had the opportunity to connect with other people as much. Things being online, it's just not the same. And in general, in college, you're so in and out. You're here for 4 years and then you go on. You take different classes with different people every day. It can really change, but having the opportunity to spend a year with a group of people, you really get to know them. And I feel like that was the best opportunity. I really genuinely made friends with my peers in my cohort, and we like sometimes meet up outside of the cohort. We get to know each other, and they're so different from different grades, different disciplines. You'll find students who are like pre-health, students who are in public policy, students who are in like economics and data science. Like it's completely different, and everyone finds a way to get along and bond. So I think that's been my favorite part of the program that I didn't quite expect.
Yeah, so well said. So that's it for the presentation. I really appreciate you guys sitting through this, whether you're here, whether you're not here, whether you're watching the recording. So what we're going to do is open it up for questions. Before, I do want to point out that if you have any other questions, my email address is right there, anna.ramirez@duke. Feel free to email me. More than happy to answer and engage via email. I also encourage y'all to follow us on social media. We don't only just post things about our leadership program. We try to uplift a lot of the opportunities here at Duke. So you can find us on Facebook, Twitter. I know that's the LinkedIn logo, but pretend it's Instagram. Find us on Instagram. We're Hart Leadership, everything. And then check out our website. We have events there. We have more information about all our programs. Yes, so what time is it? We are so good on time. So if you guys have any questions, whether drop it in the chat, please, or anybody here, just go ahead and raise your hand and then we can start answering them. Maite, is it? Yeah, Maite.
I think I sort of had a two-part questions about how people come to their projects. The first one was just noticing that most of the projects are like pretty research and informative based. Like I saw a lot of toolkits and frameworks sort of like recommending. And so I was just gonna ask if that's sort of a pattern with the SOL program, is if that's like if people are usually doing something that involves a lot of research with the purpose of making a recommendation, or whether that was just something that happened with COVID, just because like from the description of SOL, it's kind of hard to tell if it's more like community-based action or community-based research, if that makes sense. So I wanted to know if that was like a pattern in SOL, or if that was just like a COVID phenomenon. And then the second part of that question was like the projects that we're seeing. Is that like the specific thing that these people applied to do? Or since you said it's supposed to be sort of a collaborative initiative with the project, are you supposed to leave more like sort of wiggle room for when you actually start collaborating?
Great. So just in case anybody didn't hear, two-part question. First one was essentially how do people come about to their projects? And then the second part of the question was how or does the project change, right? So like what you apply with, like, is it what you end up with? I'm going to answer the second part first. The answer is no. We do not expect that when you apply, you will have the perfect project. You might, pitch, I'm going to work in X city with this law firm. And then, halfway into the SOL gateway course, you realize, wait, that is not what I want to do. You definitely have the flexibility. And that's part of the purpose of the gateway course, is to help you figure out what you're interested in and the type of work that you want to do. So don't expect that you have to write the perfect project proposal, because that's not what we're looking for. It's most definitely probably going to change. For the first part of that question, I wanted to see if Professor Murphy wanted to take a crack at that.
Sorry, repeat the question for me one more time.
I was basically asking, like, in terms of the type of the project,
Yeah.
it's sort of like a soul thing.
Action
like
versus
recommendation.
research.
Yeah.
There's a lot of room for both. So I think there were some students this summer that did primarily research-heavy projects, and that was great. Some students did more sort of direct action or organizational support. We had folks that worked in the development offices of nonprofit organizations or that kind of thing. And there's a lot of room in the program for sort of any version of what you want to do, so long as it is useful to the partner organization and something that they're on board with and have the capacity to support you in doing, and it's something that meets your academic and professional interest. So there's a little bit of a negotiation. We probably saw more, I mean, this is my first year teaching with the program. My guess is that there were more research-heavy projects this year because of COVID. My own view is that if you can work up something that's a little bit of both, it's really great. But again, it's driven in large part by that conversation. Is there more to that?
No, really well said. I think one of the things that we learn by doing community-based work is that the community-based research and the community-based advocacy, which as a good social scientist we would separate, actually really mutually enhance each other. The best, so what I would encourage you to think about, what question, I'll go back to that question. It's the kind of question you were really excited about. You may not know the answer. The kind of question that's ethically minded, that has some stakes. It's not like something that really you're passionate about. And use that to think about, well, what community partners would be interested in that question? And if you don't know it yet, that's okay. That's why you do the application. These applications are actually, weirdly enough, they're kind of designed to help you figure something out, whatever the outcome. And I've actually talked to a bunch of students, they did a SOL application, they didn't get it, became their internship anyway. And that's really cool, because the process of asking, how do you do advocacy and research? How do you make them enhance each other? That's so exciting. So the research, you don't know the answer. You might be an advocate, but you don't know the answer. That's why we do this research. That's why we do this work. So yeah, Andrew said really well. You're doing both and that's the trick is to figure out how, not to ask a leading question, but to ask an open-ended one.
The one thing I would just add to that is that if you do have a very structured research project that requires IRB approval, the Gateway course does have an IRB component to it. So just to make that clear, that if there's a formal social science inquiry IRB component, the program helps you navigate that process.
Great. We had a question in the chat that I'd like to address real quick. Somebody asked, is preference given to upperclassmen candidates for the program versus maybe first or second years? So no preference exists for a particular year, whether you're a first year applying versus a senior. As a senior, you might have more experience, and we're not trying to weigh that against a first year who might not have their resume built or done so many things here on campus yet. But first years do have more of a time to apply to the SOL program, so we definitely try to keep that in mind, like balance out. This is this junior's last year of applying. So that's kind of how we approach it. Was there another question over here? Hi.
Yeah, so I was wondering, is preference?
Just so that people can hear who are remote.
Yeah.
No, you're good. Here you go.
I was gonna ask, is preference given to people who have social sciences majors or are planning on social sciences majors, or can you be like a major in anything else?
That is a wonderful question. The answer is that no preference is given to whether you're history or English or computer science or anything. The beauty of SOL, I think Yasmin alluded to this when she was speaking, is that the cohort is like lots of different concentrations and lots of different majors, and I think that really, when it comes to discussions and when it comes to interactions, having somebody who's social science with somebody who's, humanities, and science-based and math, like it's really, really wonderful. Right, anything else? Yeah, okay. Yes, over here.
I was just wondering if you could talk about the arts program that's kind of is part of Hart as well, and whether that's like part of Soul or like a different.
So the question was if we can talk a little bit about the arts program. So that one it's called Leadership and Arts Policy, Leadership and Arts Policy Internship, LAPI. More information on our website, but just a brief overview. That is separate from SOL, it's just another program that we operate. And that one is specifically for public policy majors of any year. You don't have to be, a junior or any year can apply. And it's for students who are interested in the intersection of the arts and policy. I think I pointed earlier, Lizzie Kramer. She's actually a LAPI fellow. She did a LAPI project this past summer, and she worked with a Durham-based artist creating an exhibit. It was super cool. Duke Arts wrote an article about it. Definitely check it out. We had 4 LAPI fellows this past summer. So if that interests you, by all means, feel free to email me with more questions or check out our website. Any other questions? Oh, Andrew, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to add that even though LAPI and SOL are different fellowship programs, if you have an interest in the arts, that is a great platform from which to apply to SOL. So there's definitely room in the program for arts-based community work over the summer as your summer project.
Thank you. Was there another question over here? Hi.
How do students within the SOL program go about like building that connection with the organization that they want to work with?
That is a great question. Do you want to answer that, Yasmin?
So I'll say one of the best things about SOL is you get to pick your community partner. So a lot of times you just have to reach out, start discussing things with them, emailing, calling, talking, that kind of thing. A lot of well, not always, but I will say a lot of times partners are really excited to work with you, especially if it's fully funded. If you're offering to work for free for somebody for a summer or something along those lines, then they're definitely really happy to work with you. But a lot of times you can email, and also if it's somebody within Duke, you can also, like, if need be, like, reach out to Dr. Peck or Professor Nurkin, and they can also help negotiate, kind of going in between. There's tons of mentorship and advising on how to go about that, but it's definitely easy to reach out.
Thank you.
Really well said. Yeah, definitely during the gateway course, you get the guidance to try to figure out what the best community partner for you is. And I also want to point out, if anybody has any questions for Yasmia, who was a SOL student, definitely let me know. Any other questions here? Over here.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what are some virtues that you look for in the SOL applicant?
That is a great question. Gunther, do you want to take it?
That's a really hard question to answer, and I'm sorry. You notice how deftly I'm handing that one off to me. It's like director's job. Answer that tough question. Which virtues? So I think we really, this sounds dumb and trite, and I'm sorry, it is, like in one sense, but it is, you can't game this. We don't want you to be, like, how wrong would that be? You played it, you got in, then you gotta be a faker for a year. The reality is we all fake it till we make it. We don't really know how to do what we're talked about. We learn by doing it. So the best virtue would be being emotionally honest about why you are excited about this idea and this question. And that can be, emotional honesty is a kind of ishy squishy thing. Maybe it's hard to know, but it's taking a risk, being vulnerable to a degree. These are some of the virtues that are not prized in academia, but in fact are essential to good reflective work, real leadership. So leadership is something, we don't have a single definition of leadership. We don't prescribe it, which would be the virtues, character, machismo. No, right? It is a way you convene and figure out a kind of process that can be specific to you, about really why you are compelled to tackle this one. And if there's conflict in it, good, we want to hear about it. That is what you bring to it. That's what we're, so it's a kind of authenticity, but with genuineness, emotional honesty. That's about all I can really say. And that, you can see that in all of those project descriptions. My goodness, what an incredible list. And I mean, maybe Yasmin, you want to speak to it. Like, I wanted to know more about why you are doing what you're doing, because I had the pleasure of teaching Yasmin immigration history a year ago. And like, I would love to know more about your project. Sorry, put you on the spot.
I would just say, as someone who has applied to solid been in your position before, my biggest recommendation is that you be as authentic and honest as you can. Specifically about what you care about. I was really passionate about adolescent education, specifically in terms of adulthood. There are a lot of things that I didn't feel particularly prepared for when I came to college. So that was kind of what I based my project around. What were the things that were important to me that I didn't think I had, that if I could teach others or share with other people, that I would do. So that's my biggest recommendation. What are you passionate about? What are you interested in? I don't feel the need to like put on a front and say like explicitly, I'm this type of student. I'm very organized and enterprising and all of those action words that you get on the sheet from the Career Center. Just be honest and just say what interests you. My project, I was working with a local church called First Calvary Baptist Church, and we were working with adolescents and youth from that church. The reason I chose it is because I actually feel very close to the Durham community. I'm not from Durham, but I have a ton of family in the area. So that was something I felt particularly passionate about, working with a local group, especially one that I knew and that I trusted. So that was kind of why I picked my project there. Initially, I wanted to focus on teaching about like food education, making good life decisions. And then partially through, my project partner reached out and they were like, we think it would be great if you talk about college preparation, because you go to Duke. And I was like, okay. So that's another part of the project, being flexible, understanding that the needs of your community or the needs of the project that you're doing come first, even above our own comfort or preparation. So.
Thank you. We have a question in the chat that I want to address real quick. Have previous SOL participants ever completed their community-based research project alongside another job internship, or are they meant to be full-time projects? Yes. Students have done their SOL projects while also doing another internship. Sometimes they're writing their thesis if they're an incoming senior. Sometimes they're working, they're doing jobs. So SOL isn't meant to be like your only thing during the summer. Like you just have to focus on this. Like, no, you are more than welcome to do other endeavors. Or I know some students, their SOL project also kind of ties into their, senior project or their thesis. So they kind of do a combination for both. So you're definitely not tied to just SOL for the summer. And that goes for PEP and LAPI too. Any other questions here, over here?
You mentioned about like portfolio, so are there actually ways we can access to like as keywords like
Yes, so if you go to our website, Hart, if you just Google the Hart Leadership Program, and on the page, you'll find programs, SOL. We have a section where it says like student and projects. You can go back to see all the projects for the last, I think since 2002 or something like that. So we have all the current projects, last year's project, the year before that, all the way down to like 2002-ish, I think. It might go back even further, I'm not sure. But you can see what other students have done. A lot, I think the later you get, the less descriptive you get, but it does say like, this student did this project with this person or this community partner. So definitely check that out to get some inspiration. Do we? So for SOL specifically, we do have a going public component. So what that is basically at the end of your summer, the hope is that you have some sort of deliverable, whether it's for your community partner, we hope it's for your community partner, but sometimes it's like in the form of a research project that, all the culmination of the hard work you did, for your thesis or something. And that's something called going public, and we typically encourage you to kind of put that out there, put yourself out there and your hard work out there, because of the incredible work that you accomplished over the summer. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Just that it doesn't have to be, it's best if it can also be in this, after the capstone is over, because there's nothing wrong with having a relationship with the community partner and it doesn't go well, right? That's life. And you learn some really important stuff about what you didn't know about your thing, your question. And then that's the opportunity to really dig in and ask, and in the capstone project, that one reason that, sorry, I was calling you Professor Nurkin, sorry. They begin with the review. What they did is to, in effect, assess what they have learned and also what reality taught them. And very often that's the beginning of a really powerful transformation. And now Lizzie Kramer, she's not here, but if you were to think about her progression from Seoul to a LAPI fellowship, there is a beautiful thread, but it is she's worked for Durham for All, grassroots canvassing, listening, deep canvassing. And why do people think our democracy is screwed? Those are hard questions to listen to over and over again. And then from that, became really interested in the publicness of art in Durham, and that is, she's writing a senior thesis on murals across Durham and other cities. And so the kind of democracy engagement to the representational one, it's a really interesting thread, and it wasn't linear, and that's beautiful, that's what we want. There is a constant sort of seeking that you can see in lots of different art students. So the going public opportunity, though, is can be at the very end of your time at Seoul, or but it could be an op-ed, it could be an exhibit, it could be any number. We work with you to figure out what your project is, what's the best way to amplify it. And I would say I love this about this program. We really are. I'm sorry, I'm going to be a booster about it. This is a great policy school. And at Terry Sand for looking at awesome, people who made huge impacts. And we bring in lots of really important people who talk about important stuff, not to ding any of them. Too often, students are left out of it. You're encouraged to come and show up and be an audience member. At Hart, in the work in our classes, we put student knowledge, put it in the front, because what you're figuring out is actually very often the most important stuff that we collectively need to know and to figure out. Sometimes it's just the question. Here's what we should really be talking about. But our Hart events and also the going, we put students in the context of, you get to moderate, you get to ask the questions of Anita Earls, the Supreme Court Justice, who just basically saved voting rights yet again in our state. One thing after another. So like those are the opportunities we are looking for, that kind of, and we want students to be able to mediate the conversation and be subjects rather than objects of your education. It's that simple, but that is actually if you will, the secret sauce of our leadership program. You'll notice that most of our events, if not all of them, have students literally emceeing, doing the whole thing, or they're the experts, right? That doesn't mean they're perfect. It just means that's important. Yeah, Heather.
Can the Soul Project count towards the public policy internship requirement?
Oh, man. I think so, yes. And Heather knows because Heather worked in the internship program. Yes, we can. And yes, they can. Both can. Yeah. So, right. So if you're thinking about if you're wanting to major in public policy, junior year, you do an internship after your junior summer, and it could be the Soul Fellowship. Why not? Absolutely. And in fact, it's another great place to symbiosis. A lot of the fantastic internships we have in the public policy school started as Soul students found them and brought them to the internship program. Thank you, Heather. Yeah. Any other questions? Or we have food?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today, for sitting through those questions, for looking at our PowerPoint. Really appreciate it. Like I mentioned, if you have any questions, specific questions about Soul, I'm really good with email. Email me, anna.ramirez@duke.edu. More than happy to answer any questions. Applications due October 8th at midnight. And if you're a junior or a sophomore freshman, I encourage you to stick around for the PEP program, just to hear about that. Shouldn't be too long. But there's no interview process for Soul, by the way, just because there was someone asked about that. Thank you so much. Stick around if you're here in person. Thank you for joining us.
The food is right over there.
Oh, yes.
Take a box dinner.
So exit that way.
Panera bread.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I just had
Very good.
Yeah.